In the visual arts, the ephemerality of refutation is especially evident. Some of the old masters, such as Titian, have waxed and waned in reputation with extraordinary rapidity. In a discourse in 1771, and after the painter Joshua Reynolds, president of the Royal Academy of Arts, dismissed Italian painters such as Titian, Veronese, Tintoretto as mere decorators, obsessed with the color at the expense of form, propaganda that had the effect of debasing the market for the 16th century Venetian school of painting well in the 19th century, and raising the price of works by the 17th century Italian masters owned by Reynolds' patrons as he had intended. Among the modern masters, Picasso's reputation is extremely high, but there is sound reason to question if this will last. Picasso himself expressed doubts about the value of much of his oeuvre, hinting that he had created it only to satisfy the demands of art dealers and the public. Even during his lifetime, high prices were paid only for his more realistic works, with the highest prices reserved for those painted in his 20s, a trend that has become more pronounced since the artist's death in his 90s in 1973. As mentioned earlier, the leading critic David Sylvester, despite his deep interest in the 20th century art, judged that none of his leading artists, he named Picasso, Matisse and Mondrian in particular, was the equal of the great old masters. Sylvester regarded Cezanne as the last of the pantheon. The psychologist Colin Martindale, in his treatise attempting to find artistic laws in creative trends over the centuries, the clockwork muse, the predictability of artistic change, suggests that if the past is in any guide, Picasso's painting may at some point in the future be seen so ugly and their value will be so low that no one will want them. While Martindale's deliberately provocative view is not credible, a future aesthetic downgrading of Picasso from his Olympian dominance appears more than probable during the century after his death. It is sobering to realize that less than half of the more modern contemporary artists listed a quarter of century ago in the contemporary art catalogues of the biggest action houses were still offered at many for auction. Not many people now know the name of the Czech-German painter G.D. George Dokoupil, for example, who in 1988 was ranked at 30 on the Kunstkompass Art Compass scale of top international artists, which is calculated from data and exhibitions at major institutions and reviews in art magazines. Some artists' reputation for rise, fall, rise again. Titian is an obvious example, as is Rembrandt, who enjoyed 3 short waves of great popularity prior to his present high estimation. In England, 1870s and 1880s, and universally in the first 30 years of the 20th century, an intriguing example is the rise-fall rise of the Dutch-born Lawrence Alma Tadema, possibly the most successful painter of the Victorian era. Alma Tadema is specialized in lush history painting of the ancient world and was a stickler for accuracy based on his detailed archaeological and architectural research. Settling in London, he was quickly elected a Royal Academician and in due course was not only knighted but also created a member of the exclusive Order of Merit established by King Edward VII in 1902. Despite he having been derided by the critic John Ruskin as the worst painter of the 19th century, the year after his death in 1912, there was tremendous memorial exhibition of all of Alma Tadema's painting of the Royal Academy. Schooling of genius. Compared with the family, formal education has a less complex, generally uneasy relationship with genius. Consider the astonishing life of early 20th century Indian mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan, whom current mathematicians regard as one of the great mathematicians of all time, in a class with Leonard Euler and Carl Jacobi, according to Bell's Men of Mathematics. In barest outline, Ramanujan, born in 1887 to poor parents, was an impoverished, devoutly Brahmin clerk working at the Madras Port Trust, self-taught in mathematics and without a university degree, who claimed that his mathematics was inspired by Hindu goddess Namagiri. He used to say, "An equation for me has no meaning unless it represents a thought of God." Out of desperation at the dearth of appreciation of his theorems by university-trained mathematicians in India, in 1913, Ramanujan mailed some of the theorems without proofs to a leading Cambridge University mathematician and confirmed atheist, G.H. Hardy, despite their unfamiliar and highly probable source. Through so transcendently or original were the formulae that Hardy dragged a reluctant Ramanujan from obscurity to Trinity College, Cambridge, collaborated extensively with him, published many joint papers in journals, and demonstrated that he was a mathematical genius. In 1918, Ramanujan was elected first Indian Fellow of Trinity College and of the modern Royal Society. But having fallen mysteriously ill and having attempted suicide on the London Underground, he returned to India to recuperate, was still producing many major new theorems on his sick bed, and died tragically at the age of just 32. After his death, a Dazzle Hardy wrote of Ramanujan. The limitations of his knowledge were as startling as its profundity. His ideas as to what constituted a mathematical proof were of the most shadowy description. All his results, new and old, right or wrong, had been arrived at by a process of mingled argument, intuition, and induction, of which he was entirely unable to give any coherent account. Ramanujan's biographer Robert Carnegie, in his masterly book The Man Who Knew Infinity, writes that Ramanujan's life was like a Bible or Shakespeare, a rich find of data lush with ambiguity that holds up a mirror to ourselves or our age. Carnegie gives four fascinating examples. First, the Indian school system flunked Ramanujan in his teens, but a few individuals in India sensed his brilliance and rescued him from near starvation by getting him a job as a clerk. Secondly,